The professional contrast that wins new business. Small hinges swing big doors. The tweaks we share next can make a huge difference in your practice. Hey, welcome back once again to the Rare Advisor, where we get into recurring and repeatable events inside of your practice. It's a business model that will truly supercharge you into growth in the future. And one thing that we have learned during the pandemic that can probably supercharge your practice greater than just about anything else is getting into professional contrast. And what a great time to create that professional contrast when so many other advisors are running for cover, not knowing how to handle themselves during the pandemic, not knowing how to communicate, stay in contact with people, and so on. If you did not see the previous discussion that I had with Steve Phillips, the gentleman who's kind enough to be joining me here again today, we discussed the sounding board on a previous video. I would also encourage you to go back and connect with that video because they really kind of link together with where we're going to go next. So Steve heads up our protocol group, which is our coaching and consulting and mentoring team here at USA Financial. You can always reach out to him by connecting with USA Financial and simply asking to be directed to the protocol team. And you can find our website. You all know a million different ways to get in touch with us, so I won't bore you with that. That being said, Steve, I would love to have you, first of all, define what you refer to as professional contrast. It might sound silly, but I think some people love the idea of what they think that means, but they don't entirely understand what it truly means in terms of reality of how you structure and position yourself and your practice accordingly to accomplish this.
Well, Mike, as always, it's great to be on Rare again with you. I love doing these things together. The whole idea of professional contrast, great question. Here's the difference maker. We can have a lot of conversation, you and me, you and our advisors in consulting and study groups together, and really be focused on what we think is professional contrast and have no idea how the clients are receiving it. Right. That's the difference. We know, and maybe this is true in a lot of industries, but you and I have been in this industry, both of us, for more than 30 years. And if there's an industry that looks and feels all the same, no matter where you are in the country or what you're doing, I don't know what else it could be. What we found out was the idea of creating professional contrast has its roots, and you mentioned the sounding board. That was a big thing. How do we position introductions as a service? We provide to best clients instead of asking for referrals. And that's a big moment of professional contrast. But more importantly than that is being aware. We always said about our consulting stuff is it's not rocket science. It's based in fundamental and foundational human communication. And we've had, a privilege over these last years to actually speak directly to clients. When your advisor says something to you, what is it that you actually hear? Right. When you go to their website, what do you actually see? And the follow-up question to a client is, does it compel you to do something? Is it compelling? Do you feel like talking about your advisor instead of referring her? Do you feel compelled to share the experience? And we know that starts with the words. And it's funny because we put this is a resource that's available to USA advisors through their biz dev consultants. And that is, there's a whole 16 things under the words matter, 16 different ways that we know professional contrast can be created. And we build that into the coaching and consulting we do. Short answer to your question, Mike, is how is it received by clients?
Right.
Do they go, that's different than my last advisor, that's different than my current advisor, that's different than every ad I see, and so forth. And so it's not as difficult to create it as an advisor might think.
And I love how you're defining it. And for whatever reason, when I've said this to advisors, when I'm talking to them about what protocol does, what I've said to them is, how does the client feel? So when you're positioning the services, when you're creating your professional contrast, how does the client feel about that? Does it feel like someone's trying to sell them something? Does it feel like the relationship they have from the wirehouse or the stock jockey or whatever it might be? How do they truly feel about that? And if it feels familiar, if it feels similar or if it feels like it's part of some kind of a sales process, you're probably doing it wrong. And because there's a whole different level that professional contrast does to build the foundational elements of your practice, and that is to truly set you apart, and to set you apart as an expert, as the professional, as that trusted advisor, which is a very overused, underutilized term. Underutilized meaning very few people actually deliver on it. They all want to talk about being the trusted advisor, but very few people actually are the trusted advisor.
And what is the definition of trusted? What happens? You used a really key word, Mike, that I wrote down: feel. So this is, and you probably, you do know this, that it's the very first exercise that we actually do with advisors before we do brand and design and get into coaching. We call it brand attributes, and it's 6 categories. And one of those categories is, and it's a list of words that advisors think resonate. And one of those is, how does your client feel after they've done business with you? They've invested money with you. You've solved a risk management issue with insurance or an annuity or whatever. And then I say, whoa, before you answer that, how do you know?
Right.
Here's the difference. How do you know? If you're not in asking your clients, what's going on? What's in your mind? What did you hear? You don't know. A big part of the work that we have done at Protocol, and this started years ago by accident, is we've had opportunity to ask clients. We sat down with Mike Walters. How did it feel? What did you hear? And so these moments of being able to build professional contrast now had a track record. And clients, let me say something here too, Mike, that you kind of alluded to. We've asked clients, hey, what's the most overused word that you see on websites? And I wonder if you could guess what the 1 and 2 are. Number 1 is holistic. I don't even know what it means. Right. Sounds like it's organic fruits or vegetables or whatever. I don't even know what that. It's really funny. And again, I'm not disrespecting advisors, but we asked clients. Yeah. The second most confusing term is family oriented. How about that? Because today, so we ask clients, why? How do you describe family? What is it? And so so all of these things. So my point about that is, under the words matter and professional contrast, while clients they're not always able to put their finger on what it is that makes everybody sound and look the same, like holistic or whatever on the websites. If you say something different, instantly, they can repeat it back to us.
Right.
Yeah. If you have a fit meeting, and we'll touch on that. If you act as a consultant, really as a consultant, and and there's a whole part of our coaching program where we put advisors through. There's a difference between being a broker, a salesperson, and a consultant. Right. It's words, it's approach, and that kind of thing. But when you say it and clients hear it, they know it.
Yeah. And
which leads us back to our previous thing, Mike. That leads us to sounding board. I want to introduce you. I know you're different. I feel compelled. I have a friend or family member. I want to make that happen.
Right. And so, so when we're talking about like the feeling they receive or their ability to remember it and so on, if there's 2 things. If you sound like everyone else, you are like everyone else. And the other part of it is, and you hit on it with the term holistic, if you're using any sort of an industry term to describe yourself with a consumer, with an investor, with a prospect, with a client, with an opportunity, with an introduction, whatever it might be, if you're using an industry term, they are not going to understand and have the same mental picture of what that represents, assuming they even have a mental picture at all. But they're not going to feel or understand that the way you need them to as a customer. And so now I am intrigued by what you said, because I wouldn't have thought about the family terminology. Yeah. But that makes sense as soon as you say it. But now holistic, like, again, that's kind of an obvious one. And there's a million other industry acronyms and terminology that we could throw at people. And it's shocking how many times advisors, like, that's front and center on their website, like all the wrong stuff. And then you end up doing this huge overhaul of everything, because it comes all the way back down to their branding. And now you've got to build it all back up, because none of it was built to do what it's supposed to do, to create that professional contrast and to resonate with the viewer, with the customer.
You say this is funny, because when you and I talked about doing this particular segment of Rare, we had this one idea in mind. And now when you talk about professional contrast, it's all over the board. Everything that we're talking about, brand and design, the introduction kits that we ask clients. When you get an introduction kit from an advisor, What do you expect? And they said, well, I'm going to open it up and there's going to be a bunch of white paper. Listen to this, all the same size. That's going to tell me all the experiences. That's crazy. Who would have thought it? White paper that's all the same size. Those of you that have participated with us, you know that we took that input from the end user, from clients, and we build a cascading kit. So there's 4 pages that are all different sizes. They're colorful. They're very brief in descriptions. Immediately there's professional contrast. Yeah. That might be, and in fact, when we talk about fit meetings, you know, when you get introduced, if you're working with USA Financial and the protocol team and you're biz dev, we put all the steps. One of the steps in being introduced is send out your introduction kit. Let me tell you what you don't want your introduction kit to do. Kill the mood, blow the vibe because it's a bunch of paper. So everything we have done at USA is really built around, what did the clients say? Yeah. Do they think it's different? So from brand and design to having a fit meeting truly, that you're not making a decision today. Even if the client says, look, I was introduced to you by my best friend. I'm ready to go. Yeah. It takes guts to create professional contrast a lot of times. And, you know, here's another thing we've learned from clients, Mike, that helped us create professional contrast: barriers to entry, subliminal many times. Sure. We didn't really know that there was this list of, we have 6 barriers to entry, and we could do a rare on that at some point. That I didn't come up with a list of here. That only by talking to clients did we realize that there were these things in their mind. One of them is, when I come to that first appointment, what's expected of me? So how much do I have to bring a checkbook? Am I going to buy something? What's going to happen? And so immediately, it's a simple, you talk about professional contrast, that I have an agenda. I've sent it to you ahead of time. You know what's going to happen in the meeting, and nothing on there says we're going to make a decision. We want to see if philosophically we're aligned. Do you feel good about this? Do we feel good about this? We want to take 48 hours as an advisor team after the meeting. I want to get with my team to make sure that our expertise matches what it is you and your family are trying to accomplish. What? And clients have said, jokingly, I've actually had one client that actually says, where is it going to tackle me on the way out the door? It's like, where's the money kind of thing. Right. It sounds funny, but that's a real thing.
Yeah. Well, we
contrast everywhere.
We had these conversations decades ago where, you know, people feel like they're coming into the lion's den. And so all of these items, like something as simple as having an agenda, 99% of advisors do not have an agenda for their appointments. And so just that first step not only creates contrast because you're doing something that they probably have never experienced before on any other financial oriented meeting, but secondarily, and maybe even more important, you're telling them the things that you're going to cover, which essentially means all the things you're not going to cover. And the things you're now telling them, hey, we're not going to cover, those are all the things they were afraid to come into the lion's den for. So
that's correct.
By basically giving them this on the front end, there is an ease that washes over them, and they become much more comfortable. And you're eliminating, by not including the items, you're eliminating the things that weren't included, which were the things that probably were scaring the heck out of them about what's going to happen on this first appointment to begin with. So again, it's all quite magical when you step back and you look at how it all fits together.
Well, it's magical in the effect that it has, Mike. And you use the word ease, and I like it. You know, we talk about empowered. Here's what happens to a client that gets an agenda ahead of time. We found that about 70% of clients that you email or mail an agenda to will actually read it. Half of that group will actually make notes on it and bring it in with them and go, hey, Mike, thanks for that. And what you've done, talk about professional contrast. Okay. You have just philosophically and emotionally empowered me to be a part of the meeting ahead of the meeting. Right. You have also eliminated a barrier to entry. Now I'm not distracted while you're saying some meaningful things in the meeting, Mike. I'm not thinking, what's going to happen here? What do I have to buy? What's next? What's going on? And completely missing what you say.
Right.
That's a moment of professional contrast, and it is not rocket science.
Yeah.
So yes. And then we had one advisor recently said, wait a minute. So I'm going to send out the kit, and I'm going to have my assistant reach out and send a thank you note, you know, to the person that actually introduced. That's a big deal. Who thinks of that? And then when the person comes in after being introduced, you're saying to let them walk away and have another meeting. That adds a step. It adds a step for a salesperson. It's part of the process for a consultant. And what people realize is it's been very professional. It's been very meaningful. And here's the other thing. Let's call it what it is. There's a certain part of the takeaway close, if you want to call it that, how we were all brought up in the industry or creating the club. I'm going to get with my team, Mike, and I'm going to have a discussion with them to see if we're a fit and that we're suited to work with each other.
Right.
Well, clients are like, well, of course we're suited to work with each other. Now they want in the club.
Right.
We've had clients actually tell us when the advisor called 48 hours later, I've been waiting for the phone to ring. Literally, I'm so glad you called. I was going to call you, but you said you were going to call me. And so all that's built around professional contrast. Yeah. And it's not difficult. So,
well, it is. And by the way, it's not just, a sales strategy. It truly, as you develop your practice and you embrace these types of professional contrast and you build around them, you are going to reach a point, if you're not already there, you're going to reach a point in which you simply can't work with everyone. And so there really is a fit that needs to be had in order for you to be willing to deploy the resources of your time, expertise, and those around you in your practice to actually work with that particular client. You all have clients that you today, hindsight through the rear view mirror, wish you wouldn't have brought onto the firm.
That's right.
Some of you have the guts to actually fire them, to remove them from the practice. Others just limp it along and just can never address it. But you all have those kind of lingering thoughts where you're like, I wish I would not have brought that client into the firm. In hindsight 2020, you probably know what qualities about that person made them not a good fit for your firm.
Of course.
And so now if we bring that forward and we truly define what is a good fit for the firm, then everything you just said, this is not just the takeaway sale. Although, there's some benefit in that, obviously. The reality is you truly do need to identify, is this client a fit? Because first of all, it's not fair to you and your staff if they're not. Secondly, it's not fair to them if they're not. Because
Correct.
If you're not going to deliver the type of quality that they deserve, there might be somebody else out there who would, and you would be doing them a favor because they're not a fit for you and your practice. So, this thing is just, it's monstrous in terms of how important it is, especially as you gain scale in your practice.
That's right.
The more you scale up, the more important it is.
Yeah. And as we go along, what advisors realize is it just becomes second nature. Yes, the professional contrast exists here and here and here, and it becomes easier to communicate. The fit thing, you know what? Your clients aren't describing you as. They're not going to go and go, hey, if you got $250,000 of investable assets, call Mike Walters. Because Mike Walters, his fit is based on attitudinal qualities, recognizing that, wait a minute, people tend to hang around with other people that are just like themselves attitudinally. If I'm a good fit for Mike, and professional contrast.
Right.
The other thing about a fit meeting is clients walk away going, that was comfortable. It's professional. Yeah, I've had advisors that had said, what I tell my clients now is, look, I feel the chemistry too. We feel like it is a good fit, but as a part of our process, and if for no other reason, you know what, you've been sitting with us here for about an hour. As the two of you leave, you might think of a question or a comment that you forgot in the meeting, give you a chance to reflect on it. So do that, and we'll connect in 48 hours. And people are thinking, are you kidding?
Yeah.
And listen, there's always occasion when the best ideas don't work, but I can line up advisors. I'm sure 90+% of the time, a fit meeting that has a follow-up in 48 hours turns into not a client, but a good ideal client.
Yeah. No,
so moments of professional contrast. And Mike, I'll say this one other thing. Everything that you and I talk about on Rare, everything that we share with our advisors when we're coaching them is printed. It says, okay, what are the steps? We talked about the sounding board on a previous call, and the sounding board is a client-facing piece.
Right.
We're not afraid to share those things with clients. Those become moments of professional contrast that then become actionable conversations that clients have with other ideal clients, family members, and so forth. So words matter, professional contrast. And as we get farther down the road in the industry in the coming years, one, it's going to be a bigger deal. Two, clients are going to recognize it quickly.
Yeah, they're all building blocks to a successful practice, and in many ways, what might seem like a small hinge swings a really large door. And so,
Certainly does.
great job as always. Thank you, Steve. For those of you who would like to reach out and get more of this information, be able to dive deeper with Steve and his team, connect with us at USA Financial. Just ask to be directed to the protocol group. And as always, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and we'll be back again with you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.